something that we're getting asked a lot, and it's coming up a lot with clients. As the next quarter day approaches, what advice do you have for block management companies that are expecting a rise in arrears? And I think the format we've run to has been really good. So I'd like to start off with Roger, I guess looking at the legal perspective, if that's okay.
Yeah, and again, I want to start, and even more starkly here, I want to start by saying that I'll explain to you what the law allows you to do and what you can do, but there's a very big difference between that and what you should do. And Andrew and Nigel, I'm sure, will take that forward, and that has a lot to do with public relations as well, and what's right in circumstances. So the Coronavirus Act introduces a range of measures which are designed to help and protect tenants. None of them affect service charges and ground rent, but I'll quickly sort of run through them. The right of re-entry or forfeiture can't be exercised by court order or peaceful re-entry in relation to any business tenancies. So commercial tenancies, you can't forfeit them until at least the 1st of July 2020, and that might be extended. Notice periods for termination of short-term tenancies have effectively been extended. So Section 21 notices now have a notice period of 3 months rather than 2. Section 8 notices you can't apply to court for possession until the expiration of at least 3 months from the service of the Section 8 notice. And in addition, you've got all possession proceedings, and that includes for forfeiture of residential leases, have effectively been suspended until the end of June. But really what that means is that the obligation to pay a service charge and ground rent and the remedies that are available to a landlord or an RMC in relation to non-payment of service charges and ground rent are completely unaffected, apart from forfeiture, where you're not going to be able to get the case heard in any court until July. But that's really it. There are some practical implications which arise as a consequence of the lockdown and COVID-19, sending out a letter before claim, the practice direction on pre-action protocols, pre-action conduct and protocols, says that you have to send out a letter of claim. Pre-action protocol for debt claims actually goes further than that and says that you shouldn't be sending out pre-action letters by email unless the debtor expressly says that you can. But that's not an absolute precondition to sending to serving court proceedings or to making an application to court for arrears recovery. You can still do that even if you sent a letter out by email. It might have cost consequences, but in the current circumstances, one would have thought the court would take that into account. You can issue claims online using the procedure which is set out in Practice Direction 7E of the Civil Procedure Rules, and you can still send out proceedings to the court by post. You can still serve proceedings on leaseholders in the post. The post offices are still open. And I know that the county courts at Central London, I think, got through 1,500 orders in the last week. So the courts are still processing claims, processing orders, despite the COVID-19 outbreak. So it is possible to claim and recover service charge and ground rent arrears, and those underlying legal obligations haven't been affected. But I know that certainly a lot of our clients are telling us to take a much softer approach. So, we're inviting them to do that, and we're being instructed, not to forfeit residential leases, not to issue proceedings even, just to send out pre-action letters in line with ARMA guidelines. We're asking debtors whether they're key workers, and talking to them further if they are, to see if a resolution can be made without recourse to litigation. All of these things aren't legal. They're just, I suppose, a good thing to do, a pragmatic thing to do in the circumstances, given that a lot of people are going to be financially affected by the COVID-19 outbreak, and going in all guns blazing won't necessarily have the desired results. and public relations wise, having an aggressive approach is probably not the best thing right now. I mean, what do you guys think? I'll throw that open to Andrew and Nigel.
So what I'm hearing is that the agents that are communicating well, demonstrating active management, giving those weekly updates, generally there are exceptions across the piece, so we've got to be careful with generalizations. But where they are creating relationships with their customers, where they're demonstrating active management, the service charges generally are coming in. There are exceptions. I've heard of some agents having quite horrifying non-payment rates, and I wouldn't want to suggest that that agent isn't also communicating well. I don't know the particulars of that one, and there are a few. But there is an underlying principle of demonstrating your worth. The second thing is, of course, is that there will be some people that will simply try it on. And they'll say, "Oh, well, it's a crisis. I don't want to pay," because that's human nature. There'll be other people who will be genuinely, really, really struggling at the moment. There are some people who are absolutely hitting the buffers, and I think part of that it's coming back to that communication piece, understanding the approach. The first example I heard of this actually was in the build-to-rent sector, where a major operator was just went out to the residents and said, "Look, if you've got a problem, here's a hardship form, fill it in, send it back, we'll take a view." And very few forms actually came back in, whereas other operators in the build-to-rent sector have kind of gone quiet, and they're finding that their rent arrears are higher. So just a little bit of a hurdle, not as an impediment, but just a little hurdle, which actually says, no, if you have hit hard times, then talk to us, explain to us. And I do know of managing agents on the block side that are following a similar principle. And again, that's having reasonable success. But there will be people who are hitting genuinely hard times. And there, I think it's very much about payment plans. That's liaising with your RMC directors or your freeholder and going into payment plans. And I think the payment plans need to be set up correctly, so you're not starting to create loans or FCA regulated issues. And I think one of the key things of the payment plan is just to make sure that the part of it is getting the admission of the debt as part of entering into that payment plan, that the service charge payer accepts that debt is valid, because then if you do find yourself in a sticky situation later on, then at least it becomes actionable in time. But beyond that, I think it is very much about being humane and being kind. Everyone's struggling here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think humane is the big word that we have on there. Something that I think is important, though, and again, might be something good that comes out of this. So the managing agents who are listening in on this, they'll all smile because they'll know this, that leaseholders will say, "I pay you £5,000 a year to manage my estate." Well, we know that's not the case. You probably pay them £100 to manage the estate. The other 4,900 is things like buildings insurance, caretakers, cleaners, the lot. So a thing to do here is to reiterate what service charges are. So we've seen the government has given, if you like, a rent holiday, an unfortunate phrase, because as Andrew and I are aware on some BTR conferences, people are going, rent holiday, it means I don't have to pay rent for 3 months, rather than actually you're going to have to pay 4 months worth in 4 months time. So you're not getting away from it. It's just a hiatus. People are obviously asking, well, can I have the same for a service charge? We've actually had this conversation with government as well. Should we give service charge holidays? And we've explained they are completely different. One is the profit for a landlord. The other keeps the lights on, keeps the cleaning going, keeps the heating. So I'll do a small plug here. One of the things we've done for our members, we've sent them a template that they can send out to their leaseholders saying, service charges, rather than just the usual terms and conditions on the demand, is what is a service charge for? It is important to keep your place safe. Something the Americans are doing is they're stressing the retention of asset value, that your flat maintains its value if it's properly maintained. That's what service charges do. And I think that's something that we can look at. The members I've talked to, they are keeping the metronome going, because for years and years, it goes out regularly. People are used to it. They are looking at the hardship, and they are taking a view. Soft peddling was the word that was used. And as Andrew said, people are just ringing up saying, I don't think I should pay my service charge because my tenant doesn't have to pay the rent, so why should I? Then you have that chat. But there certainly will be people who can't. The horror stories, Italy has got a 90% failure rate now on its not service charge, but its community charge. But that government hasn't got the 80% furlough. So on hardship, an argument is, well, hang on, at worst, you're on 80%, you're at home, not going out clubbing, bars, restaurants, your disposable income is probably better than it's ever been. It's a tricky one, but as the guys have said, there's a consensus seems to be, thankfully, that people are understanding and are not going in hard, nor should they. But it is important to get the money in to keep the place going.